Yes, so I was talking about our outline. So far, so good. From the first class we did, so it was the introductory part to data science. We saw why this course is trending, what are the job opportunities that this course is promising, uh, and we saw some of the roles that this job offers. We saw some you can be a data scientist, you can be a data analyst, you can be a business intelligence specialist. We mentioned about being a data engineer, a data architect, and so on and so forth. Then from there, we mentioned some of the concepts, and there was even a very comprehensive introduction to data science. Actually, we were checking out how this course is now evolving. We saw that now there is a lot of data being produced, especially in this century where almost every system is being automated. Like we actually in a digital era economy. So we actually have a lot of data. So we saw that there is actually a huge demand for people who have knowledge and skills to analyze and generate insights. So we gave it a simple definition where we say that data science is basically an art. It's an art because you are combining several disciplines. Yeah, so you're combining several disciplines. So it's the art of discovering insight, trends, patterns from data, and now being able to explain those insights to the individuals for the purpose of decision making. So normally we call it data-driven decision making. Then from there, we mentioned why data is now it's normally considered as the oil for the century, and it's actually the key driver to most of our industries today. And we saw that that was the reason why companies with a lot of data like Meta, Google, Microsoft are being perceived as the wealthiest companies in this decade. So that is actually what our main introduction, we mentioned about that one. And now we are still now proceeding with Python programming for data science. So we saw what is programming, why is Python that popular language for programming. We saw why we need to use Jupyter notebooks to write our Python codes. And we also saw why now there is an alternative version of Jupyter notebook that we call Google Colab. And this Google Colab is basically a hosted version of Jupyter Notebook in the cloud. So that was a very good introduction. And now we now build on now actually writing these programs. And I really want to go through this first document very fast, just to recap on where we are so far, so good. I don't want us to get lost and at any point along the way. So this document is very, very important. And like I had mentioned in last week, if you find time, you can still go through it again and again, because it's actually talking about the building blocks of programming languages. Basically, it's talking about what are the essential components that you need to learn in order to master any programming language out there. So we mentioned about the first thing you need to learn and understand is you need to understand what is a variable. We did that one last week. In case there is still a question, you can still pass it on the chat. And now so far we are on the second module. So we are now talking about data types. And like I had mentioned in last week, these are actually the two most confusing components. And if you can get these two right, the other ones actually, they'll just flow, okay? So we had started with variables. Now we are doing data types. I'm very, very confident that over this week, we'll also do conditional statements. We are also going to do looping statements, and we're also going to do functions. So that now, the other week, now we proceed with OOP, exception handling, and file operation. After we are done with all this operation, now we are basically going to use this knowledge of Python programming to run and develop machine learning projects, develop data analysis reports, and so on and so forth. So we had started with variables. I think we mentioned what is a variable. Just to mention something about it, we said that a variable is basically a storage location that we use to store data in our program. And we said there are some guidelines that we use to name this storage location. One was that the name that you use to store data in your program should always be descriptive. That is, it should always refer to the data that you're storing in that variable. That was very important. We also said that anytime you name a variable, it cannot start with a number. It can only start with a letter or an underscore. Please always remember that one. Another thing we mentioned about variable is that you cannot have a space or the special character within a variable. So in case of, instead of having a space, you can actually use an underscore. And let me just open it up. You can actually use an underscore. You can actually use an underscore, and that is what we call the snake case, okay? And this is actually the most preferred way of naming a variable. In case you have a space, it cannot contain space. So instead of having a space, then just join the two words with underscore, and then you ensure that all the names are in lowercase. This is actually the most preferred way. We mentioned other programming languages like JavaScript and Java. We also have Kotlin. These languages uses camel casing. Yeah. So someone asked a very good question. What if you have a constant value in your variable? So we said that in case you have a value that will never change, then you can give it uppercase letters like this one here. So it's actually a constant, something like pi, something like any value that will not change within your program, okay? So it's good to mention that one. We talked about all these other aspects. The only thing we never mention in variables are the global and the local variables, which we are also going to do as we define functions, okay? So this one would make much more sense as now we define a function. So during our functions class, we are actually going back here and now differentiating between what is a global variable and what is a local variable, and why they are very important to understand in our programming language. So these are actually what I always want you to remember within the variables is that always work with a descriptive name. If you want to store a user age, just call it user age instead of calling it X, because the name user age, it's actually describing the value. Always follow the naming convention very, very consistently. And the naming conventions are actually here, okay? They're actually here, up to there. So we don't use camel casing. In case you have a constant, you can work with this one here. Then always remember to avoid as much as possible using a single letter as your variable name, except when we be talking about loops. You'll see why now single name variables are now crucial to build the looping statements. So for this week, we will actually focus a lot on data types. We'll actually focus a lot on data types. And we had actually started last week where we said that, let me just open up this one very fast, just to recap. We had actually said that as much now as you're writing your programs, there are different kinds of data that you can interact with. So this different kind of data specify the kind of operations that you can do. So if you're dealing with a number, basically you can perform arithmetic operations. If you're dealing with a text, then you can actually work with string operation. Let's say you can do concatenation, you can check the length of a string, you can actually find some characters within a string, and so on and so forth. If someone gives you a list, then basically you can add a new item to the list, you can remove something from that list, and so on and so forth. So basically, the main reason why we are learning data types is basically to specify the various kinds of operations we can do to different types of data within our programs. So we had mentioned like almost all the data types we have in Python, and like we had promised, for the sake of now us understanding this data, we are going to dwell on each and every type of data in our Python programs. So we mentioned them very fast. I think I can just do that recap. We mentioned that if you're writing a program, you're going to deal with any numerical types. So these are the numbers, yeah? So basically, if you have a number, what you can do, you can actually perform mathematical operations as you're going to do data using NumPy library. So basically, please remember this one. For numerical types, we only have 3 types of numbers. We have an integer. Always remember that an integer is basically a number without any decimal point, okay? Then we can go to a float. Always, I think we mentioned this one, we say that a float represents a number with decimal places. So, and finally, we mentioned about complex numbers, which are actually numbers that will have 2 parts, a real part and an imaginary part. And they're actually very useful in some aspects like electrical engineering, hardware programming, and so on and so forth. So over this week, we'll actually today start with now understanding the string data types, okay? We'll actually do more examples because it's very, very useful. Then we're also going to talk about the sequence data types that we have, where I've already uploaded some materials to do with the list. Later, I will upload some materials to do with tuples and the range. Then we talk about set operation, where like I promised, we're going to talk about what is a union, what is an intersection, what is a difference. And we are going to see that union represents the OR operation. I'm sure that will make sense later. Intersection would represent the AND operation, and the difference will represent the NOT operation. Then from there, we're going to talk about dictionaries, which are the mapping data types. And we're also going to see that a dictionary is basically a data type that will have a key that will always refer to a value, okay? So we are going to see that a key must always be a string, just like someone observed, and also a key must always be unique. Then finally, we're going to finalize with Boolean data types, and we're going to see that these are data types that will only evaluate to true or false, and they'll basically form the basis of logical, comparison, and conditional statements within our program. So let's proceed together. Just like we had mentioned, just to check on the notes, we had already started on numbers. I don't want to do them again. We've done them already, and I hope we've exhausted them. In case someone asks a question, please always ask. But if just to do a recap, I said integers, please remember, they don't have any decimal points here, and they can either be positive or negative. Where do you use integers? Which kind of operation you can do on integers? You can do operations like you can do counting, you can do indexing, or any operation that uses whole numbers rather than fractions. We mentioned that one. Then we also talked about floats. Always remember this one, please don't forget. A float is basically a number that will include a decimal point, and therefore they are mainly used to perform operation, like you can use it for measurements. You can get height, weight, length, width. You can use it for financial calculation, the stock price, the profits, the loss, and so on and so forth. And then finally, you're also going to use it in your scientific computation, like you can do Gaussian elimination. You can use it in calculus operation. You can use it in matrices operation, vector operation, and so on and so forth. And I hope they really make much more sense as we talk about NumPy. Then finally, complex numbers. They are mainly used in signal processing, electrical engineering, and so on and so forth. So long as you're dealing with numbers that uses both real and imaginary components. So from there, I hope now you're ready. I hope you're ready. So that was actually what we did last week. So for this week, I want us to start again on string data types. So I hope you're there. I hope you're there. This will actually be our main focus today. We are going to talk about string data types, some of the operations that we can do to a string, and so on and so forth. So you can open up this link where you get the notes to explain what is a string. And also, concurrently, you can also open this notebook. Let me just copy it and paste it on a new tab here, so that now we can see some of the actual codes or practices you can do with a string. So I'm also sharing that link on the chat. So let me share that link with you on the chat so that now we can go together. Yes, so I hope you're ready. I hope you're ready now. Let's start from here. So we have the notebook. I think it's quite a lot, and I think it is quite important. And if you want to, maybe if you want more examples from this one, because like I promised, this class will be highly practical. You can also open a new notebook here just to do your own practice. These are the notes we have in class. These are the description. This is the class practice, but maybe you want your own practice. So I would maybe recommend for today, we can open a new Google Colab alongside the one we have in the class, so that now you can do your own practice together. So just open a new notebook. So then you can call it string class practice. So you're going to do more examples. I hope now it would make much more sense if we do it in that order. So let's call this one string class. I think we can call it string data type. Then class practice. Because I've highly considered programming as basically, if you want to understand programming, you just understand it by practicing it on your own. You just need to do your own practice all the time. And I think that is actually the best way you can actually master any language, basically by just practicing the language on your own. You just start it on your own. So we started with strings. Let's just see the definition. In Python, that is in Python, the string data type, like I had mentioned, it is used to represent any data that will have sequence of characters. Sequence of characters. So we have values like words, okay? Any word, any sentence, or any textual data can be now represented as a string. And actually, you're going to say that. And that's why I want you to do the class practice, is because strings are one of the most commonly used data type in Python. You're going to see that one. And it is flexible and versatile. So versatile means that you can use it in various applications for working with text in various ways. So you're going to see this one. A string can be enclosed inside a single quote, a double quote, or a triple quote, depending on the operation that you're doing. So we are going to see that we have mainly two types of a string. We have the basic string, which is basically a string that is made up in one line. And we're going to use either a single quote or a double quote. The other type of a string that normally we use to represent a paragraph, it's what we call a multi-line string. And this one you're also going to use, we are now going to use triple quote string. You can either use this one or this one, no problem there. And then finally, this actually will take like almost all our time today. We are going to check like almost all the string methods you can provide for manipulating and interacting with strings. We're going to check some example like lower, like upper, like place, like split, and so on and so forth. So this method will allow for tasks like case convention, placing character, splitting a string, and so on and so forth, and also string formatting. So you're going to see later that strings are used extensively in Python tasks, such as text processing. So remember, you as a data scientist, you can be doing your data cleaning process. And how do you clean your data? By basically processing that text. You can use it for user input handling. I'm sure we saw this one with those students who we were together on the weekend. We are also going to use it in our data manipulation. So yes, I want us to start doing the class practice together. So here, let's just start. The first type of a string that I was calling it the basic string. So I think you can just cite here, just give a comment. You can actually press Control ? To get a comment. So let me type this one here. So if you type Control, then you add a ? You're basically going to generate a comment. So you just type Control, then ? You're going to get a comment. And we say that a comment is basically the line of code that will always be ignored, but mainly used for readability purposes. So we have those, the single line strings. The single line strings. And we're actually saying that these are the strings that we are calling it the basic string. It's actually what we are calling a basic string. Sorry for that one. So a basic string. So then what is it all about? It's basically made a string that covers one line. A string that covers one line. So it can either be something like a word, you can use it as a phrase, or you can also use it in a sentence, so long as the textual data that you have covers one line, or a letter. So we have a letter. So you should have started with a letter, something we call let me just say a character. So we have a character, we have a word, we have a phrase, and we have a sentence. So one thing in common about them, please remember this one all the time. A basic string, that is Control ? We are going to use either a single, and someone noted this one on our last week class. It's a single quote, especially if you have a word. And let me start with a letter, or a word. Yes, that is highly advisable. You can also use double if now the string becomes longer, probably if you're working with either a certain phrase or a sentence. So that is actually the convention, but you can use it whichever the way you want it to use. So that's actually what you're seeing here, like a letter P. This letter P, it's considered to be a string. This is actually a string because it is made of a letter, a character. This should have been a character. This could have been a character. So this is actually a string. So what they're actually trying to do here is that you can actually print it out. So I want you to do the following prints. I want you to say you can print the letter. So remember we mentioned about the print function. It's mainly used to display outputs of a variable. So if I want to see what I have in this variable, I'm going to print the letter. I'm also going to print, sorry for that. I'm also going to print the type. So the type is another function that will actually specify which type of data has been stored in a variable called letter. So can you see that one? And if you want to see it clearly, I can also give a space here. So this one makes sense, like that one. So basically, I want to print, then this is another function, the type of a value that has been stored in the variable letter. Also, I can do, finally, I can do print the length. So if I say the length is how many characters do I have in that string letter, okay? So let's run these three commands and see what happens. So if I run this one, normally it takes time for the first time to run because you have to connect to the Google server, and also you have to connect it to Python 3, Google Compute Engine backend. This is actually the compiler. So the first print tells us that this variable letter has stored a single character P, and this single character P, its type, its data type, it's actually a string, which is actually represented as str. Normally it's a string, and the length of the characters we have here is 1. So that's actually what this one was actually trying to demonstrate. So we can even go ahead and have a word or a phrase. So like you can actually say greeting. Just copy this one. Just copy this one. So I want you to do the practice much as possible. So I would highly suggest you do something like this one. I hope it would not confuse. So this is actually also a string, but it will be something to separate now what you're doing. So you can also try that one. Then I will just copy this three here. I would copy this three. Then I would paste them right here. So then I'll just copy the name greeting. Then I'll paste it here. I want to see what I have there. I want to see the type of characters that are there. I also want to see the length of that one here. So if you now run this code cell here, so the first one was this one. The second one, the letter greeting, it's actually having the word hello world. Hello world, it is also a string based on the type, and the length of the characters in the word hello world is actually 14. And please remember, this 14 includes even the space. If I had a space, then it had the number of characters in that string. Now we have 15, okay? So that's actually what this code is trying to do here. And you can also do the same for a sentence. You can actually have a sentence like this one. And if you print this sentence, you have this one. You can also add the length and the type. So I was just showing you where you can be doing your own practice just to make this one make much more sense to you. So from there, we also have a multi-line string. a multi-line string. And basically a multi-line string, it can represent, I can add a code cell here, control question mark. I'm also seeing a multi-line string. So it can represent a paragraph, because what you normally see with the paragraph is that it will cover multiple lines. And something else to note is that it uses the triple quotes statement. Yeah. So that is actually what is being demonstrated here. So you can have a string like, let me even have a phrase. So I can search something like, what is programming? What is programming? So then the programming, then why I always have to get this one. So you see the name programming, it is actually a paragraph that covers multiple lines. So if you want to store this one here, then you can say, so this one I'll have to call it, the variable name is programming underscore definition. Yeah, so that is the name that defines this one. And because it's actually a multi-line string, I will have to use triple quotes. And then in between my triple quotes, like that one, I would actually now paste my string right here. And then at some point, because it's very long, I can just break it down like this one here. So, okay, good. That one then, for it to look nice. Then you can have something like this one here. Yeah, so this is what we call a multi-line string because it covers multiple lines. Let's say programming, yeah, so this is actually the multi-line string. So it can be a paragraph or a phrase or anything. So we're going to see why this is very, very important in programming. So you can actually do all the string operation, like I can actually print tab. I can actually print the name, the type, and the length. So if I run this one here, then I'm seeing that the name here, it is a string and it is made up of 221 characters. I want you to imagine you're writing an essay and the essay must not be less than, let's say, 500 words. How do you know that one? How do you know that the essay is less than 500 words? You can actually count the length of that essay. So any question now between the two? I would start with the first one. Someone who is doing the practice. Maybe you want to try it on your own and see what you get. So that was the first one I've shared there. I've shared that one. And also I want to share the other one here. I don't know what's happening. Sorry. So yeah, sorry for that one. I think it's not that visible enough. Like that one. So I wanted to now do that one, then I also do this one here. So far so good. I hope now everyone can differentiate between what is this is also what is actually a single line string and what is a multi-line string. So I hope everyone now can differentiate between those two. In case you're not able to, please don't forget to pass it on the chat. So let me see. I have not seen any question on the chat. So far so good. So I think we are okay up to there. Then from there, concatenation, very, very, very important. So concatenation. So we are doing the class practice today. I want you to do the practice. Please try as much as possible because that is actually how you learn very fast. And then in case you have a question, you can pass it on the chat. So we can talk about concatenation. concatenation. So concatenation is actually the process of joining strings together using a plus, symbol. So we're doing the practice today. I want you to try out. Last week, it was basically the introductory parts, but for this week, I really advise we now do the practice together. And this is actually how you're going to learn it in a more effective way. So basically, you're being told here that concatenation is basically a way for you to join your strings together. So for example, I can have maybe, maybe I think the easier one is to just say your first name is like my first name is Eric. So that's my first name. Then my last name. So remember, I'm naming those variables. I'm always following the guideline. So let me just go with Otieno. Those are my two names. This is my first name, and this is my last name. And now I want a program that will basically display my full name. So to get that one, I'm just going to create a new variable, call it, this is actually my full name. Therefore, I'll just have to combine my first name. So to do concatenation, we normally work with a class. Then I add to my last underscore name. Yeah, like that one. So I'm always following the camel casing procedure. So let me just see my full name here. So if I run it here, I'm going to get Eric Otieno. Remember, we said that a space is also treated as a string. So therefore, you can actually add a space here. So if I add a space here, it will automatically provide a space here. Alternatively, I can also add a space here. So after the first name, plus, then I add a space, that one, then I add my last name. I hope you can see that these are three strings. The first one is Eric. The next one is a space. The last one is my last name. So if I run this one, I'm also going to get the same operation, or I can also store this one in a variable. I can call it space and then add it here. So that's actually what we're calling string concatenation, okay? So I've talked about the length. I've talked about the length. So let's talk about the length operation. We can do it here. The length function, and we say that it counts, let me just say it counts the number of characters in a string, including spaces available. So basically, the length function counts the number of characters in the string. So for example, I would want to see, I think I've already done this one so far, but just to demonstrate, I want to see how many characters do I have in my first name, my last name, and my full name. So if I run this one, I can say my first name is made up of 5 characters. I hope you can see that is the case. My last name is made up of 6 characters. My full name now would be 12 characters because it's actually 5 characters plus the 6 character, that is 11, plus this space here. So if I remove this space, then it will automatically be 11 characters, okay? You can actually do string comparisons. So I can actually say, I want to see whether the length of my first name This is what I wanted. Let me just remove this one. I hope I'm not confusing. This is actually what we call Boolean operation. We're going to do them later. So I want to see whether the length of my first name is same as the length of my last name. So if you want to do comparison, you're going to use the equal sign here. Okay, so we're going to learn them more in our Boolean operation. So it can either be true or false. So let me see what this one is. That is false. Why is it false? Because my first name is made up of 5 characters. My last name is made up of 6 characters. Then these are not true. So the opposite, I can actually say that I want to see whether the length of my first name is not equal to, not. This is actually what we mean, the not equal to the length of my last name. So if I run this one, then this must be true. It's true to say that 5 is less than 6. Okay, I can even say whether, I think that is actually what I can do for now. So that's actually what this code is trying to explain, that as much as now you can actually check the number of characters within a string. You can actually make the comparison. Like for this one, they were actually checking whether the length of the first name is greater than the length of the last name. And that was true. And so on and so forth. So I hope up to there, there is no question. So now we have unpacking strings. So unpacking strings. So let's go here. Let me talk about unpacking string characters. So if you say unpacking is whereby you are getting the characters, unpacking the string character. It's actually the process where you are actually trying to get how many characters do we have in that string and storing them in a variable. So I think that one is actually self-explanatory with this demonstration here. I think that is the process whereby if these are, how many characters are this one? This L will be stored, not that one. The name Python is made up of how many characters? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I can create 6 variables and then unpack all the characters in the string language, okay? So then you can actually unpack them here, especially now if you want to do an advanced string processing. Yeah, so then we can also go to how accessing the characters in a string. This is something I need to mention. So I hope that one is self-explanatory. Then we can also talk about accessing characters in a string. So to do this one, we normally use the indexing operation. So indexing operation uses this symbol here. That is what we call the indexing operation. So what is it all about? Indexing operation, it is actually a situation where the characters are assigned. So to assign is to provide, like you provide numeric values. So let me even say integer values. Because we've learned about integer values. Then starting, this is very important, starting from 0. So that's actually how you can access items within a character. So if I say I have a string like the name Python here, I hope that one makes now much more sense here. And then I can go with this one. Let me just go with this one, which is actually the same as what they're doing here. So if I print the language, then I apply the indexing operation at 0. That is the first letter. Then I'm going to get letter P. So it's very similar to unpacking the letter P. The next one, Y, which should be at index 1, I get y, and so on and so forth. That will be very, very similar with storing it in a variable. Like, for example, this one, at index 0, they stored it in a variable, they printed it here, it was P. At index 1, they stored it in a variable, they printed it, and it was there. So any question up to there, so on, so far, so good. I think that one is still okay. So as much as you're doing the indexing, we can actually access the last item in a string. Let me add this one to our practice here. So I can also say that we can also, okay, let me add it below. Add it below here so that it makes much more sense. Sorry, that's okay there. So we can also say, I can have another string like the course is deep. Let's say someone is doing deep learning. Say you're doing deep learning. Deep learning, yes. So we can also say that we can also access the items using the negative indexing, which, sorry, what am I writing? Which accesses the last item. But what I mean here is that if I say I print, let me just show you here. If I want to print the name course at -1, I hope that one makes sense. So I'm going to start from the last item. So this one should provide me with G in that order. This is actually the forward propagation. This is the backward propagation. So if I run it here, I hope it's actually giving me the reverse. So this, I think I need to separate it here so that you can see. So I can actually print just print here, just to separate the two. So we can also access them using negative indexing. So can you see? Like that one. So we will not access all of them, but this one accesses this one. At -2, we get the second one, the second last one. At -3, we get the third one. -4, get the fourth last one, and so on and so forth. This is actually the best way you can access characters within a string. So let me share this one with you here. In case now you're also trying the practice, maybe you're getting some challenges. You can work with mine here. I hope you can see that one there. You can just copy it and paste it on the chart. Let's proceed because you have so many operations I've mentioned about that one. This is even a good slicing a string. Let's talk about it here. Let's talk about it here. Slicing a string. So slicing a string. So this is actually the process where we are getting a portion or a subset. How do you write portion? Portion, sometimes it's called a subset. So if you've done subsets, if you've done saved operation, then it won't make sense of a string. We use, so I can say, we use the operation below. So we use the operation here. So this operation we use anytime we want to slice a string. So we go with the indexing operation because basically we want to index a certain slice or a certain portion of a string. Then this should be the value of the start. Where do you want to start your portion? Then you put here full colon. This should be where do you want the string to end. That is actually how you slice a string. So in the example above that we're using, so we have a string There's something I would want us to note after doing that operation. We have a string like Python. I hope you can see. I think I'll have to remove this one. So we're just doing the practices rather than just reading the note. You're trying to practice now on your own, so that now you get used to writing these codes. So if I run this one here, I have a string called language. This variable language has stored a string Python. From there, I want to get the first three characters. This is actually what I want you to note at some point. I want you to note this one. Please check it carefully. If I want to get a portion that has the first three letters, so that is P, Y, and T, you're going to notice that I'm going to start at index 0. This is the start, where I'm getting P, and then T, it's at index 2. Can you see? So it's let me just run this one for you to see. I think I should have printed. Perfect. Let me print the first three. Now this one should be more clearer. So let's run it here. So if you run it here, if you slide from index 0 to index 3, then you're going to get P, Y, T. What do we mean here? What I want you to see here is that this was index 0, the start. This is index 1, and this is index 2. So the last index is always excluded from the portion. So if I want at index 3, I should have taken 0, 1, 2, 3. So I should have taken up edge, but this should be excluded. Then you get the first 3. So if I want to get the first 4, then I should just add here up to index 4. Then now I should be getting P, Y, T, H. Can you see that one? So these were the first 3. So I'm assuming the first 3 is at index 0, index 1, and index 2. So this is actually, I think it should be a comment. It should be a comment. So you're saying you're taking index 0. So index that you'll be generating is actually index 0, index 1, and index 2. Then I can now say that index 3 will be excluded from the portion, from the slice. This should be very, very important. I hope you can see that one. So if I'm saying from index 0 to index 3, then I'm going to take index 0, which is P, index 1, which is Y, index 2, which is T. The index 3 that I have included here will be excluded from the portion. I hope it makes much more sense. So you can check the other ones. So if I say I want to get the last 3, and so this one again here. So the last 3, then if I print it here, I'm waiting for Gemini to assist me there. So if I print it here, then the last 3 should have been 0, P, 1. So the last 3 starts from 0, 1, 2, 3, H, O, N. So H is at index 3, O index 4, N index 5. Then I'll have to go up to index 6 so that now it's excluded from the portion that I'm returning. Can you see here? Yeah. So that's what we call slicing. Please do more practice on it. You can also work with the negative indexing and so on and so forth. So if you want to skip characters, it will be also very, very, very useful here. If you want to skip the characters as you are now slicing, so you can actually say here that I have the name Python. I want to take the list from index 0 to index 6 first. Let me first remove this one here. First remove this one here so that it makes much more sense. So if I say from index 0 to index 6, then I get the name Python. Can you see the whole name Python? But I only want to take P. I skip the next one. I get this one. So I skip 2 at a time. So if you add here 2, then it will actually skip Y, then go Actually, it's actually skipping 2 characters at a time. So if you run this one, then now you're getting P, P, O. Is that way that you're saying P, second, we skip Y, then we go to T, second, we skip H, we go to O. So actually, this is how we skip characters within a string. Then from there, no questions so far. I think you're good. Escape sequence. This is quite useful. Let's talk about escape sequences. So I want us to be keen here because this is actually very common mistake we do. Most people do actually. Escape sequence. So they are used to add more specialized operation, more specialized operation to a string. So if I'm talking about escape sequences, they are normally used to add more specialized operation within a string. Within a string. So they are basically used to add more specialized operation within a string. They normally start with a backward slash. So they start with you see, with a forward or a backward slash. Let me just confirm. It is a backward slash. Yeah, backward slash. Backward slash. So this one here. This one here. I hope you can see that one. So now we can mention several sequence operation. So we can actually start with tab. So tab, this is tab. So tab. You can have tab. So if you want to add a tab, then you can actually say backward slash, then you add T. Okay. Backward slash, then you add T. You're going to see that one. If you want to add a new line, then you're going to use backward slash, then you say N. Okay, let me see other ones that we have tab, we have N, and also special symbols. Special symbols. Special symbols. So let me start with, let me give you a paragraph here. Like, let me give you a paragraph like the one we had done. That was it. I think the one we have done here. I think this one will even make much more sense. I want to copy this one here. Assuming I don't want to, let me just copy this one here. I hope I would not confuse you. Just wanted to make much more sense. That's what I'm trying to do. That's what I'm really trying to do. So I have a string called programming definition. Then I press that one. So I want us to see what happens. Please, let's take it carefully. Let's take it carefully. You see, this is what we are getting here. So now we can add more specialized operation to this string using the escape sequence. Like, for example, if I wanted a space here, like a tab, so that it looks like an actual paragraph, I can basically go here, as you can see here. I can actually go here and have escape sequence tab. Let's see what happens when I provide a space. Let me see what happens. I hope you can see now there is a tab. I hope you can see that one. I hope you can see there. Just run from that point of view. There, can you see there is a tab? So there's a space. So using this escape sequence, and actually I made a mistake. I didn't want to do this one. I wanted to copy this one. Sorry, that one. I'm really sorry for that one. I don't want to use this one. How do I do it? Sorry for that one. Let's just use a single sentence like this one. Yeah, like that one. Sorry. Just wanted now this one to make much more sense. So if you run it, now it looks this way. So if I wanted a space, then I can have escape sequence tab. Then it will actually provide a space here. I hope you can see. Now, if I want a new line, I hope it's now making sense. If I want a new line, from the word instruction, I want to go to a new line. What I can do, I can just add an escape sequence N. Let's see what happens. It should now break into a new line. Can you see that one? After the name instructions, we've actually added an escape sequence N and we've started the for in a new line. So then I think I should start from the word or. Let's go to the word or. Let's go to the word or. That's the word or. Problem or perform. I think I can add it here. Let me just add it here. I think after the word or, new line. Then I'm also getting the same. I hope you can see. Then called. Let me go to the word called. This one here. I have escape sequence new line. And what I'm getting here. So basically, an escape sequence is a word. So let me share this one with you. Let me share this one with you. Okay, let me even share the notes. Everything here. I'm also sharing them on the chat so that also you can try them out. But I hope now you see. Yes, I'm being told I'm quite fast. Okay. Okay. So, but in case there's something that is not clear, ask it. I think I'm just going to address it as we proceed. Because some other concept might be easy to get, others might be now taking time to understand. Yeah, so John, you're saying I'm going fast. Let me go slow a bit. But I hope now there's nowhere that you are lost somewhere. You can always ask there in case you're lost somewhere. Okay, so like I was saying, these are the escape sequence characters. There's tab, there is new line, there are even more. Like now, let's give you this scenario. Let me even give you this more scenario, a good one. Let me add it here. Let me even add it here. The one I mentioned about specialized symbols, I've said tab is escape sequence tab. New line is escape sequence N. But now there are those specialized symbols. Specialized symbols like let me just say I have a word. Let me just say I have a word like. So let's see this word. This is very, very confusing for most people. Yes. So I can say people's. So if I have a word like people's, you see, opinion. I think people doesn't make sense. Person's opinion. The person. I say people's opinion. People's. What am I doing? Let me do it again. Sorry for that. So I'm saying, I want to say a word like people's apostrophe. That is actually my main point of view. Opinion. Opinion like that one, yes. So if I have a word like this one, you see now, if I call the apostrophe here, this is actually an error already. Let's see. Let me just print this word. Just print this word. Let me just print this one. Okay, let me. This is actually the best way you can. But now this is the problem. I want to say the people's opinion. But now this one, we are actually assuming that this thing you closed it here. It has started here. We have closed it here. So if I try to run it, this is a problem. So to avoid this one, I think I should just remove this one. You don't have to put it here. So if I run this one, this is a problem. I'm getting an error. Can you see? Because it's now trying to figure out, did you close your string here or did you close it here? So to say that this is actually an apostrophe, you have to make it as a specialized symbol by adding a backward slash right here. Can you see? So now this one says that I want to add an apostrophe here, then I close it here. So if you run this one, you get now the name, people's opinion. This one here, people's opinion. So I want to try out this one also and see what I mean here. In case there is a question, please feel free to ask. So that now we move together. That is actually another case where we want to add people's opinion and so on and so forth. So if you go back to the notes and talk about escape characters, where was it? There. So we can actually have the tab. So if I run this code here now, I hope it's now making much more sense. That I hope every day, I hope everyone enjoy the learning the Python challenge. Then the new line is introduced. Did you? Can you see? Now I want to build a table. So I want to say day, I had a space. Topics, I had a space. Exercises, I had a space. Then on day one, I had some tabs. Day 5, I had like this one here. Okay. So if I wanted to give a backward slash, then I should add an escape sequence like this one here, and so on and so forth. I hope it's making sense. If you look at it here, yes, and now, and so on and so forth. So if I want to include a character like this one, I just give it an escape sequence here. If I want to introduce another character here, I just give it an escape sequence right here. So now finally, this is actually now where we wanted to focus a lot. The string methods. In case there is no question, now let's talk about the string methods. The string methods. So let's talk about them here. String methods. So we're doing our practice here. I hope you're enjoying this one. So now we can say now the string methods. So there are a lot of methods that we have, but I'm only going to pick the mostly used ones in our text preprocessing operations. So these methods are used to manipulate the strings. The strings. So how do you call the method? This is how you call the method. You basically take the string, then you call the method here. Method like that one. So a method is basically a function. I think I forgot to mention this one. A method is basically a function, in other words. So you can actually call these functions to manipulate the strings we have. So you can just take your string and then call your method here. So like the first method that I hope you can see here is a method that we call capitalize. That one. So I hope you can see here that I have a string like the challenge we have is 30 days of Python. That is actually the challenge we have. So if I print this one, let me see how they've done it easier. Sorry, what am I doing? So that is 30 days of Python. So if I print here, this challenge, that is the string. Then I call a method like dot. So if you just add a dot, then you're actually going to see all the methods you can actually call to a string. All these are the methods we have. So we can have a method like capitalize, we can have a method like casefold, center, count, encode ends with expand tabs. You can say find, format map, index, is alphanumeric, is alpha, ASCII. Like we have so many types of a string. So a good example is, for example, if I say capitalize right here and run, let me see what I get. So now you can see that now this string has been transformed. Just say manipulate or transform the strings. So if you say capitalize, then the first word will actually be capital. Can you see this one here? So if I say uppercase, this is another one called upper. I think it's upper, not uppercase. Then let's see what we get. Now, can you see that it has been transformed to uppercase? That one. Yes, Martin, you're saying? Martin, that's, let me say, yes. Martin, you've asked whether I should talk about the immutability of strings before we conclude. Yes, I'll mention that one before we conclude. I'll mention what do you mean by immutability. Yeah, sure, I'll mention that one. In case I forget, you'll remind me again. Okay. Maybe I can mention it here. Maybe I can mention it here. Let me just mention it here. So if I say that a string is immutable, so if you look to the dictionary, let me just even look to the dictionary. What do you mean by immutable? It's something that cannot change. Look at the name immutable. What do you mean by immutable? So anything that is immutable, according to the dictionary, is something that is unchanging over time, or something that is unable to be changed. So basically, we are saying that strings are immutable, which means that they cannot be changed. They cannot be changed. Now, let me demonstrate that one here. Let me do, I hope this one will make sense. So let me demonstrate that one here. So if I print this one here, then I print, below here, I print still challenge. Just say that one. Let me see what I get. I hope you can see that the string challenge still maintains its identity, its originality. We have not changed anything here, okay? So this challenge.upper has actually transformed this thing, but now the original one is still not changed. So to do this one, this is what I mean. Let me now remove this one. So for me to change a string now, I can say uppercase string will be, I take the string original one, so the original one, then I change it now. So if I run this one, you see now I'm able to change. I think I should have printed this one and the challenge. Yes, and the challenge. Yes, that one. Yeah. And still here I print the challenge. So now I hope this makes sense. So something that is immutable is something that cannot change. That is where we had started. So we're now saying that strings, you cannot change them at any given point. You can transform them in a new variable, but you can never change their original identity. So if I run this code now, let's see whether now it would make sense here. In the first case, I had a string called challenge, which was 30 days of Python. So I created a new variable to store the uppercase string. So if I printed the first one, you see I'm getting the uppercase one. But if I still print the challenge, it's still the one that we had earlier. Similarly to this one, this was actually the string. So if I say dot lower, so if I say lowercase string, I'm getting this one, and still the challenge remains the original one. So immutability means that something that cannot change. You can just transform it to a new variable, but you cannot change its originality. I hope it makes sense there. So I think there's something we had mentioned about that one here. That strings are immutable. Yes, here. Since strings are immutable, each time you perform an operation that alters a new string, then a new string is created, leaving the original string unchanged. Okay, so that is what you're seeing here. A new string will be created here that will store here. This one will not be changed at any given point. Okay, so I hope I've answered that one. So we have another type of an operation or a method that where we can actually count an occurrence of a character. For example, if I have a string like challenge 30 days of Python, I want to count how many times letter Y has occurred. It has occurred 3 times. So if you run this one first, this is actually self-explanatory that letter Y, I've counted it and it has occurred 3 times. Then sometimes you can actually say, I want to see where this letter Y, how many times this letter Y has occurred, but I want it in a portion starting from index 7 to index 14. So this is index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So from index 7 all the way to index 14, 7, so 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So in this portion, let me demonstrate here. In this portion, from here all the way up to here, how many times do you see letter Y? It's only once. From index 7 to index 14, I'm only seeing Y. So it's the substring, the start, and the end. So how many times have you seen letter TH? The first one is here, the next one is here. So it's actually twice. Okay? So actually, this is actually what we call the count. And also they have a string method called ends with, where we can actually check whether if a string ends with a specified ending. So for this matter, it's either true or it's false. Okay. So for example, I want to see whether the challenge has end with ON. That's true. I want to see whether the challenge has end with TION. So that is not true. So that is false. So then we also have expand tabs. It actually replaces the tab character with spaces. So default size is 8, then this expand tab would actually add an argument like this one here. So I think, yeah, I think that one is also self-explanatory. We also have the find. So you want to see whether the position where you can find letter Y, okay, letter Y. So if you run this one here, then letter Y you can find it at index 5. So let's count 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So at index 5, we're able to get character Y. At index 0, we're able to get character TH. So that is actually the find method. Now I want to take my time here. I think I'll have to do this one practically because this one is also very, very used. Someone had asked about it. So there's formatting method. Formatting method. So let's talk about string formatting. So let's talk about that one here. The string formatting. So string formatting is actually the process where and output of a variable is displayed inside a string. Yeah, like that one. So string formatting is actually the process where you want to display an output of a variable inside a string. So let's demonstrate that one. We can actually do it in two ways. We can actually use the format function in this manner. So let's try that one. So let's say I have this student called, so student name. So I have a variable called student name is, let's say it's called Derek Sagini. I have a student called Derek Sagini. Then this student is doing a course called, so Sagini is doing a course called machine learning. Then, so I want to try out, then also the student gender, you just say the student age, the student here is second year. That one, yeah. So I have these three variables, you can also have them. So you have a student name, you can give it your name. I have a student course, you can give it your course. I have a student here, you can give it your student here, like that one. So then I have now let's say I want to send a message. Let's say I want to send a message. So the message says that the student name, so the student name is, so remember I cannot just type the name. I'll have to format the output of this variable here. So what I need to do, I can just provide curly brace to show me that I would have to format this name right here, pursuing. Now I'll have to format the course here. Then I want to format the name right here. So that's actually how you format, the first way you can format. Then from there now, to start formatting the name, this name here, this name here. So let me just first print the message. If I just print the message here, this is quite important. Let's first print the message and see what happens. So if you run this one, so you can see that it has not formatted the names. So the student name, we should have formatted the name of the student here, pursuing machine learning now in second year. So to do this one, I'll have to call a function here by adding the dot. Then you say, I want to format now that string. This is what we call the string formatting. I want to format that string. And in the first occasion, can you see in the first occasion, I will format the output here. So let me start with student name pattern. Let me see what happens. Let me see what happens up to there. I think I should format for all of them, comma. Then I'll have to say student course should be the next occasion. Then finally, student year should be the last occasion. So this code is trying to tell us is that I have these three format options. The first one is this one. The second one is this one. The last one is this one. So the first one allows to format the name. This name will be formatted here. So now we're saying the student name is Derek Sagini. So this part here, we formatted the student name right here. Now Derek Sagini is pursuing. I formatted the next value here. So I formatted the next value here. And now Derek's again is in second year. So this second year has been formatted as the last option. Okay, so now if I compare between what I'm trying to do here and the string formatting here, I hope now it makes sense that I have the first name, last name, the job, the country. So now the whole sentence is saying that I am, then this first name will be formatted here. This last name will be formatted here, full stop. I am a. Of times, but if now run this program, you're going to see that I am, the first name was formatted, the second name was formatted, then you add a full stop. I am a, then the job, which was the teacher, is formatted here. Then I think this teacher lives in Finland. Then from there, you also have the area of a circle, I have the radius, and pi 3.14. Then the area is equal to pi times radius times radius. So therefore, so if you get this one, then you say the area of a circle is 10 is 3.14. I don't know what that one means. It should be 314. Yeah. So that was the first way. They have not mentioned the easier way. So there's also another easier way. There's also another easier way. So that was the first way you can do it. Let's have a space there. Let's have a print. Then there's also another way you can do that one. Let me share this one with you. So that was string formatting. First way. I can copy that one. I can share that one with you here. Maybe you can also try it out and see whether you're getting any challenge there. Then from there, we also have, so now let's try the other way of formatting a string. So that was the first way. Alternatively, number two, which is not there in the notes, but I think you can also try it here, is what we use, what we call the formatting options. So we also have what we call the formatting options. So if I say the formatting options, it's something that looks this way. You have the formatting options, and then you put your string like that one. Sorry, like that one. So it's actually what we call the formatting options. So for example, in the name above, I could now say the message. I'll put you relate the message. Message is, then I'll have to say the formatting options, then I put my string right there. Right. So it's actually what you call the formatting option. You put the string, then you put the options like that one. Then from there now you can say the student, am I writing? The student name like that one. So what you're saying is that the student name is, I've now formatted this one right here. Pursuing, I've formatted this one right here, now in this here, like that one. So if I run, I'm also getting the same output here. So this is actually what we call the formatting options. I think it's the easier one compared to this one, where you just have to put the F here. It's very important. It's what we call the formatting options. And then you now pass the values inside the curly braces like that one there. So actually, we're saying now the student name has been formatted here, student course has been formatted here, the student here has been formatted right here. Okay, so you can also try out this one and now compare between which one is easier to use, and that is actually what you're going to use in now your subsequent codes that you're going to write from there. So any questions so far up to there, to the string formatting options, strings formatting options. So now we can proceed with the other one. So from there, we also have the index. It returns the index of a certain string. So if I say y, then it can actually tell me that y is at index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, y. So index returns so find y at index 5. Should it be index or find? Then there's also another function called is alphanumeric. I want to check whether this whole string here is an alphanumeric string. So I should say it. But yeah, so if you say alphanumeric is whereby you've combined lowercase, uppercase, characters, and special characters. So for example, this one, because you've combined uppercase and lowercase, now if you say alphanumeric, that is true. Similar to this one, I've combined the text with the numbers. So if alphanumeric, that is also true. But now if I only have lowercase value, then the alphanumeric is false. And similar to this one, when I've actually I've not actually added the cases, still the alphanumeric is false. I think that one is self-explanatory. You want to check whether it's an alpha. So if this is an alphabet, then if you say challenge is alpha, then this is true. You have a number like 1, 2, 3, then this is false. You want to check whether it's a digit, 30, it's a digit, false. 30, it's a digit, true. So you can also check whether it's decimal. For example, 10 number is decimal, true. I think I should learn this one because now it looks a bit confusing. Yeah, this should be is. Sorry for that one. So yeah, that was the first one. So 30, it's digit that was false. This digit that was true. Number, whether 10, it's decimal, that was true. Otherwise, actually having the opposite, and that is false. Then you can also check whether it's an identifier. So to check for, it must check for the valid string within a variable name. So I have to check whether this is actually a variable name, 30 days of Python. So because it starts with a number, a variable cannot start with a number, then it's not an identifier. But these are an identifier because it follows all the variable naming guidelines that we have. Yes, so there's a question from Kelfas. Yes, yeah, that's true. That's a good one. So we've actually used the str to return them as radius. Not as radius, sorry. We want to return them as string, not as numbers. We want to format them as strings, okay? We wanted to format them as strings. So let's remove them and see what would happen. Let's remove them and see what would happen. That's the best way to demonstrate. If I were to remove the name str, what would happen? If I run it, it's still the same. I don't think there's an issue, still the same. Only that they wanted to view them as string, but not as numbers. So the year they have been declared, this is actually an integer. This is a float. And now you want to return them as string. So then you can call the str function. But I don't think for here it's not changing anything right here. I hope I've answered that one. Yeah, so proceeding with that one, because I've realized we have a lot of methods to call. There is the one for is an identifier. So an identifier represents a variable name. So a variable name is also called an identifier. So if you want to check whether you're using a valid variable name, then you can actually call the is identifier function. For example, if I have a string like if I have a string like 30 days of Python, then because I've started with a number, then basically this is not an identifier because a variable can only start with a letter or an underscore. Then if I had provided a space here, let me run this one, then this should have been false. A variable cannot have a space. You can use an underscore. So you can also check whether it's a lowercase value or it's an uppercase value. Where it's lower, I think it's self-explanatory. Its upper is also self-explanatory. You can check whether the string contains uppercase value. Then there's is numeric, where you want to check whether is the number numeric true, 10, is 10 numeric false, okay? So you can actually join two string which can return concatenated string. Like for example, if I say web check, I have a list of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and React. So I want to say that result is when I want to join hash to all these other aspects here. Yeah, so I think these are very advanced. Now it will actually add these ones to each and every aspect in that list, right? Like that one there. Then you can also say strip. Strip removes both the leading and the trailing character. For example, if you have a space here and you have a space here, and then you strip let me run this one again and see what would happen. So they're saying strip Y. Yeah, then also we have the replace, whereby it actually replaces the substring inside. So for example, if I have a string like challenge is equals to 30 days of Python, then I now take the challenge dot replace the name Python with coding. Then instead of now saying 30 days of Python, we're actually going to have 30 days of coding. I think that one is also self-explanatory. If you now say split, it actually returns the strings from the left. So for example, here, if I say 30 days of Python, and then I check challenge.split, it's actually going to return all these items that have a space inside a list. Let me just show you that one. So it's actually going to return the list here by using the split function. Then if you say title, it returns title case string, whereby every word will be title case. Then the swap case is whereby you want to check if a string starts with a specified string. And also we have starts with, in case you want to check whether a string starts with a specified string. Then I think up to there, we've actually exhausted all the string functions that we have in strings, all the string methods that we have. So I think now I will upload some quizzes today. So someone asking in the group, I will upload some quizzes today for both variables and now the string operation. And now from there, tomorrow, you're going to focus now on the list data type. I think if you compare between a string and a list, they actually are more or less the same. So if you mark this one as complete, we are also going now to check about the list tomorrow and possibly tuples. We are going to check possibly lists and tuples together. So up to there, I want to call it a day for this class. We meet tomorrow. We now check on Python list and tuples. So what we'll expect today is some quizzes that I will upload for both Python numeric data types and Python string data types. So you're going to find them this lesson here. So now up to there, I will be to take now any question from you. Before now, we call it a day. We start tomorrow on Python and list.